Ireland's Gold inside the National Museum of Ireland Archaeology. The collection of prehistoric gold work ranges in date between 2200 to 500 BCE. Most are pieces of jewellery, and during the early Bronze Age, gold products were made from sheet gold, including sun discs, crescent-shaped gold collars called lunulae, and then much later, gorgets. By 1200 BCE, new gold working techniques developed, twisting gold into a variety of torques and seeing concentric circles come into widespread use, creating versions of solid gold jewellery echoing the styles from across Europe at the time. The beginning of the later Bronze Age was a time of spontaneous creative ability, and the gold found in Ireland was part of a more widely used style of gold working that became current in later Bronze Age Europe. A combination of a technique of manufacture and ornamentation enabled the creation of some of the most notable objects in Bronze Age European jewellery, including the Velem-Szent diadem from Hungary, over 30 centimetres long of sheet gold, and it's believed to have been a queen's headdress. Pieces like this diadem are why pieces of later Bronze Age jewellery are referred to as diadem vessel style, identified by lavishly applied decoration from southern Scandinavia to Hungary and of course Ireland. The earliest versions being these 4 ribbed bracelets, the 2 in the front from Dysart County Westmeath and Skryne County Sligo, dating from 1200 to 1000 BCE. The more elaborate pair at the back, up close for you here, is from the Derrenboy Hoard in County Offaly, showing the new technique of coiling gold wire being practiced. These 2,000-year-old bracelets may have been created as a result of travelling goldsmiths, possibly by way of southern England, creating objects to suit local taste. This may be hard to prove, but what we do have is evidence that there was a rapid spread of knowledge over large parts of Europe, giving rise to local schools of gold working and even borrowing from each other as the centuries go on. Why? Well, gold is easier to work with than bronze, and in different parts of Europe where these are found, there are examples of metal excellence reflecting wealth and pomp of society. Nevertheless, widespread influence has more of an impact in Ireland than you ever thought when it came to jewellery over 2,000 years ago.
Have you ever seen these gold items in the National Museum of Archaeology in Dublin? Gold was typically the material used to create objects of prestige during the Bronze Age, as highlighted in Ireland's or the gold collection on display. And some of my favourite objects within that collection have to be these gold ear spools that would have been placed inside the earlobes of wearers that had been perforated and stretched out for them to fit. This image in the museum gives an idea of what the ear spools may have looked like. The late Bronze Age, around 1000 to 500 BCE, was a really productive time for these highly trained Irish goldsmiths, creating items such as dress fasteners, bracelets, neck rings, gorgets, and of course, ear spools. Some ear spools even contained very small gold pellets, which would have jangled lightly when the head was moved. Several pairs of ear spools have survived in Ireland. So much so that we actually have 3 different types of ear spool, including ones that are like a closed box, some that are bobbin shaped, and others that are much thicker so that the ear spool projects forwards and backwards as the earlobe grips it at the centre. And as you've probably noted, they were typically then decorated with concentric circles and motifs, which, according to the theories put forward by the museum and by historians, all symbolise the power of the sun. Though we know a lot about Ireland's ore or gold collection, which I have talked about many a time in the National Museum of Ireland, some items we just do not know what their exact use was. Still remaining a bit of a mystery, these 9 relatively big hollow gold beads date to around 800 to 700 BCE. They were actually found in 1834 while a group of men were tilling some land in Tumna in County Roscommon, consisting of 2 sections of sheets of gold fused together. There's actually a little hole that runs through all of the beads, just at the very side of them, which indicates that it may have had something put through those little holes to create a giant necklace of sorts. And if you notice, they all graduate in size, so again really helping that theory of a necklace. However, if you've counted, there's not 11 there, there's actually only 9. After they were discovered, they were dispersed amongst various collectors, and gradually, over the span of about 150 years, they all came back together in the National Museum. However, one is in the collection of the British Museum, and the final bead, number 11, its whereabouts is completely unknown. But what do you think? A necklace or not? By now, you have certainly heard of this very exciting archaeology news coming out of Wales last week, which of course was a discovery in a Bronze Age burial of one of the oldest wooden combs they've come across in the UK and a gold hair ring. They were discovered in a burial pit containing cremated human remains, not only highlighting Bronze Age craftsmanship, but also attention to appearance. Along with the oldest wooden comb ever found in Britain, a golden hair ring was also recovered amongst the 3,000-year-old remains, as noted by Red River Archaeology. They further noted that though such a wooden comb seems mundane, it is the most important artefact from this pit. And they are absolutely correct, because eye-catching gold objects dating from the Bronze Age will no doubt survive much longer than anything made of wood. 8 narrow teeth remain on this comb, and it may have survived due to it indeed being burned as part of the cremation, the charring stopping it from decomposing completely. The hair ring then measures to about 1.1 centimetres in diameter, displaying a chevron and herringbone pattern on it, believed to of course been worn on the hair. An early example of hair rings not just in Britain but also in Ireland, and hair rings, of course, could indicate high social status. Bronze Age hair ornaments reflecting a possible high social status can also be found in the collection of the National Museum of Ireland Archaeology on Kildare St in Dublin. By about 1200 BCE, new gold working techniques were developed and new styles began to appear, such as ornaments made from sheet gold, like these armlets and hair rings, possibly hair ornaments, from the Derrenboy hoard in County Offaly. Also in their collection is the hotly debated function of these objects called lock rings, like this fine pair found in County Clare. They date now to the later Bronze Age, so about 800 to 700 BCE, and some theories suggest that they may have also been used as hair ornaments, with the hair going through that little central slot there and then affixed to the hair. Regardless of the exact functions of these proposed hair ornaments from the Bronze Age, what is apparent is that these objects and pride in your appearance, particularly hair, was important enough that the deceased wanted to be buried with these objects. Follow along for more. We have jewellery and archaeology news, and this time it's coming out of Poland. This incredibly unusual two-faced designed ring dates to around the 11th or 12th century and was found buried beneath Wawel Castle in Krakow in Poland. And what makes it so rare is that it's the only one like this ever found in Polish territory. Due to the date, the imagery on the ring does not align at all with what you would typically find, which would have been Christian symbolism. Instead, what you find is a shield with two opposing faces, and archaeologists and researchers who've been working on the find have theorised that it could be a depiction of Janus, the two-faced Roman god. Of course, what it also indicates is high caliber local craftsmanship. Even Janus is unique in and of itself because that Roman god does not have a Greek equivalent. It is the Roman god of entrances and exits, of beginnings and endings, transitions and changes. It's quite small, it's only about 1.5 millimeters thick and about 4 millimeters in diameter, with the whole circumference measuring about 57 millimeters. But it is of course that decoration that makes it highly unusual. In fact, it is the only example in which human images are depicted on an early medieval ring from Poland. So who did it belong to? One of the researchers theorised that the ring was a local product which likely belonged to a ruling elite under the Piasts, so Poland's first ruling dynasty that ruled from the state's founding in the 10th century until the 14th. The form of the ring, though not connected now, is very typical of that era. Archaeologists discovered it in the basement of the Danish Tower, which itself was reconstructed in the late 14th to early 15th centuries. The castle's history itself dates back to the 11th century, and the ring was discovered on top of remains of a former stone structure, most likely a defensive rampart, meaning that this particular piece of jewellery is extremely rare.